I'm Jordan.
And I'm Rosanna.
And on this podcast, we explore how to take life off autopilot
and relentlessly pursue a life worth living together. Hello, and welcome to Season 6, Episode 1 of the Relentless Pursuit podcast. Show me your friends. Show me your friends. I was going to do something with show me the money, but it just didn't really fit there.
Yeah, you don't have the disposition.
No.
To be like, show me your friends.
All right, there you go.
It doesn't translate.
It's not the same.
No.
The same.
Okay.
So welcome. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 1.
That's right. We are launching our very new season. Welcome to Season 6. We're excited. We've got a great lineup of episodes for the next 12 weeks. And we're excited to be getting into this one, talking about, well, not about friends, but about the people that you're around. But before we get into this one, we just kind of want to touch base with our listeners. Have had a lot of new listeners join and kind of wanted to recalibrate what this show is all about. So how would you define the Relentless Pursuit?
What do you mean, how would I define it? It's a show.
As one of the co-hosts of the Relentless Pursuit.
All right. It's just a husband and wife duo talking about all aspects of life. So from career and kids to marriage, love, sex, money, just all of it. And really just sitting down intentionally, looking at a topic, sometimes something that we've seen come up, something we've read that's inspired us, and really kind of digging into a topic, seeing what we think, asking each other questions, getting one another to like push each other further along towards our goals and our values, and making sure they're in sync and in line.
Yeah, and I think this show is really about the power of conversation, like intentional conversation between two people. It doesn't have to be a husband and wife. I would say it's not a marriage podcast, but it is in many aspects as well. But I want to avoid the cliche sometimes when I'm describing the show. I'm like, because it's about life. It's about extracting as much meaning and value from it as we can. But that encompasses everything. And so I don't want to say like the show is about everything. But in a way it is. If you want to live intentionally, you have to kind of think through all of the aspects of life that you're engaged with, and to think, what extent are you going to double down? Where are you going to put your time and your energy? What do you value? What are the outcomes that you're pursuing? What are the negative things that you want to avoid or you want to shed from your life? And so, yeah, like you said, it's really a show that touches all of those topics. And I would say that all of our episodes are half a conversation, because you and I have the conversation, and we intentionally go for about a 30 or 40-minute show, although
sometimes it's 50 or 60.
Blow right by that sometimes. But then the goal is that as a listener, you're hopefully listening along with someone else or sharing the episode with someone else. So you can say, okay, here's the different elements of this topic that they explored. Where do we take the conversation from here?
Yeah, or even just, what do you think? Like, how often do we, with the people that are in our immediate circle, talk about the surface things? And then this is a great way to kind of push each other to get to some of the meat and to, provoke kind of deep thinking and growth with one another.
Yeah. So at times we'll get deep and philosophical. At other times we'll be more like a practical and surface level. Sometimes we'll be funny. Sometimes we'll be super serious.
Oh my gosh. Are you reading one of the kids a book at bedtime? We've got the voices.
Yeah. But yeah, the ultimate goal is to engage with one another, and then to engage with you, our listeners. And it's a lot of fun to talk about a topic that's come up on the show with someone who's been listening to the show. And then we can just, I think, edify ourselves even further with more robust and interesting conversation with others too. So if you're listening, you're like, man, I wonder what Jordan and Rosanna would say about this. Let us know, because we would love to have that conversation with you in whatever way that looks.
Yeah.
Now would be a good, we'll remind you at the end of the show, but now would be a good time that if you haven't gone ahead and subscribed, go ahead and do that. But leave us a 5-star rating and a review. We would love to stack those up, and by the end of 2022, have a lot to be proud of, and a lot of great words that make us feel pretty darn good and help others find the show too.
All right. Ready to dig in?
Okay, so let's get back to Season 6, Episode 1. Show me your friends.
All right. So we often discuss taking life off autopilot, pursuing personal development, creating and following routines that are conducive to success, and reducing the number of things that stand in the way between us and our goals. And so, we've done habits and routines and social media. We've done all of that stuff, but we really haven't kind of focused on anything with looking at the people in our circle of influence. So in this episode, Show Me Your Friends, we're looking at a quote by motivational speaker Jim Rohn, who coined the phrase in 2012, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with."
I feel like that predates 2012. I don't know if he came up with that or not. I feel like I heard that as a kid.
Oh, maybe. But then there's also this quote, that's kind of derived from there, that's "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future." So Ron largely focused on the principles of human behavior that have the greatest impact on one's performance. And he would argue that our personal relationships have a huge impact on our performance. And that isn't something that we've really looked at on the show before. So we're going to kind of dive into that idea today.
Huge influence. Bigly.
So whether we like it or not, when it comes to relationships, we are greatly influenced by that, by the closest people who are to us. It affects our way of thinking, our self-esteem, and our decisions. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's much to disagree about it. I have a few other considerations that I want to pull in too. But as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the idea that it's all about like what's normal to us. And we decide what's normal based on what we see around us. So the things that people are doing are the things that seem normal to us because those are what people are doing around us, right? So if you have a number of friends who are really into surfing, I don't know anybody into surfing.
Well, right, because that's not normal to us because we live in Chicago. But
right, but that seems like a normal thing to do, right? Or if you have people who are part of like the local country club, then that seems like normal, and either you're part of that norm, you're aspiring to be a part of that norm, or you're not, and you feel abnormal compared to the people around you. And so the list could go on with like really any human behavior, but I think that. If we just look at who we are as an individual, that concept of like just raw individuality is hard to pin down because so much of what we determine of what we are and what we want and what we do, even subconsciously, is derived from these influences around us.
Well, and I mean, that stuff starts from the time that we're born, right? If you think about like your family life, like what's normal to your family just becomes this like state of norm that you're comfortable with, you're familiar with. And I feel like sometimes it's not even until you meet someone outside of that norm, like that you realize like, is this actually normal? Or like you think they're weird because their norm is not your norm. And it's like this kind of like eye-opening experience of like, oh, yeah. I didn't know that there was something else outside of this context.
Yeah, actually that's a writing prompt I have with students is like name something that's normal in your house, but to anyone else is weird. Can you name something from your childhood?
I can name everything from my childhood.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, the notion of like family dinner, the way that we did it, or taking a Nutella sandwich to lunch in 1989. Like these were groundbreaking, revolutionary things outside of the norm for the very white suburban people that I grew up with.
Right. We invented Nutella.
I was taking Nutella before you even knew what it was.
Yeah. For us too, it was like pasta on Sunday. Like I grew up and that was the thing. Like we would come home from church and we'd make pasta.
Well, but even that, like
years.
Church on Sunday, right? And then you had like dinner.
Yeah.
You had like 12:30
yeah, church
pasta.
on Sunday. You don't go to church on Sunday. But yeah, kind of that idea of when you're a kid, you like those norms are established normally within your household and within your family, within your small circle of friends or the kids you see at school.
Right. But like, norms, doing well at school, going on to college, getting like, some of those things that are kind of pre-programmed. And, we've talked about that in the, what was the episode about the narratives that we write for ourselves? Mm-hmm. So we've talked a little bit about that, but the opposite is true too. Like with time, the negative effects of the company you choose to keep will start to compound, which will also hinder you from achieving your ultimate goals. So, whether we're talking about like surfing or reading is cool or going to college, right? Like those are all like positive things, right? Family being a focus. But what if you constantly surround yourself with people who are smokers? right? Like from the, time you're in high school, kids start smoking and you start smoking, like those habits
Because that's
compound.
normal within that circle that you're in.
Correct. Same thing. I read an entire article about like if your friends and family are overweight and obese, you're like, I forget what the percentage was, but it's like if your immediate family is obese, you're like 40% more likely to be obese.
I read
And
that. I wrote that down here. This is from the New England Journal of Science, a
okay.
2007 study. So I'm sure there's more updated research out there, but it was 45%. So if this is just a friend, so if a friend of yours gains weight, then you are 45% more likely to also gain weight.
And why is that? Did they like specify specifically why?
Because then that becomes normal. Same thing with smoking or vaping. You see now.
Oh, there you go,
like, a lot
vaping.
more frequently nowadays as well, right? It's like I think there's the conscious level. Like vaping is a very like overt activity. You can see someone do it, and it's like, oh, they do that. I feel like I could do that too. That now it doesn't look so scary, so foreign. With weight gain, it's a little bit more subtle. But it's kind of the same thing where it's like, okay, so and so looks like this or weighs this or has these habits, then those can also be normalized for me too.
Gotcha. So really, I mean, that could be the same thing with like alcohol use, drug use, right? Like, well, so and so's a decent person. They're taking gummies.
Mm-hmm.
Pot's legal. They're smoking it. Like, yeah, why not? I mean, I could, right? Why not?
Right, because it's that degree more accessible to you.
Right.
So it's just this idea of, I'm using the word normal, but it's like just what you're exposed to, what the people around you are doing, just seems like what people do. And it's kind of this way of introducing that idea. So whether it's a positive habit or a negative habit, it has these subconscious influences on us.
Okay. So it really has to do with kind of like what normalized behavior is in like the circles that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
So really what we have to look at is, like looking at our social circles and not even just like, okay, so who are what is the quote? Let me go back. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you're the average, right, you're looking at, you're probably in the middle of some people who are better and some people that are worse than you. And so then like the question becomes like, how do you level up and spend more time with people who are, in a sense, better than you to lift your average and to move forward?
Yeah, I don't like that way of thinking though.
Okay.
I think that oversimplifies it. Like, I think that like you can't look at any individual and then just black or white say that person is above or below me wholesale.
Okay.
I think there are some people who, or I think every person has some elements that I aspire to emulate, but probably also has elements that I am not as interested in emulating.
Okay.
And so I don't want to look at someone, or I don't want to like look at the group of people that I'm with on any occasion and think like, oh, I'm below or above them, or I'm in the middle. But looking at like certain qualities, like sometimes if you look at an individual, if you look at a group, like I think there's certain qualities that stand out as the ones that group kind of operates around. And then you can think about like, what are those specific qualities, but there's still like tons that are being left off the table in the nature of those interactions too. So we can be more specific. I was thinking about certain aspects of that, but I don't like the idea of thinking like, oh, I need to assess the 5 people who I spend most of my time around and determine whether or not, like, in a wholesale fashion, I should discard this person or accept or pursue this person.
Okay. Well, and I think that, like leads to another conversation a little bit about friendship. Because we're taught from a young age to play nice with everyone, befriend those who are different than you. They might not look like you. They might not be the coolest, the funniest, the prettiest, the smartest. There are friends that we have from childhood, or we have like family that are friends, like in terms of like our interaction and how much time we spend with them. And it doesn't mean you can't associate with those people. And it doesn't mean you should be judging them on the quality of if they're better or worse than you. There's room for everybody at the table, but I think that there's also like you kind of have to at some point like consider the company you keep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to be a little bit more aware of like who people are for better or for worse, and get to the point where we realize, like, some people can be toxic. Some people can be draining. Some people can, be takers and never give. And so I don't think it's beyond, I don't know, beyond any of our control to say, like, I'm not going to allow that person to, like, have a huge space at the table. Like, there's room for them there, but they're not going to.
And I still love them. They still have positive qualities, but I'm not going to allow them to have an outsized influence in who I'm trying to become.
Because that's kind of like that next step of this conversation, is looking at the influence the people around us have. And it's not just the influence of the people directly around us, but it's even the people who are in their circles, where it's kind of like this, you're at the center, and then you've got the 5 people around you and the 5 people around them. And like, those circles overlap and they widen. So the company your friends keep also influence you.
Yeah. Although I would have changed the dynamic a little bit, because when I think about friends and the amount of influence they have on me, for better or worse, I would say it's really small. Because if I were to rank like the top 50 people that I spend time with, I don't think friends would make that list. Right? I mean, who do I spend probably the most time with?
Well, the 5 of us.
Right. I was going to say, first of all, the people I spend the most time with are the kids. Right? So, and that's its own dynamic. Like,
I mean,
the
probably your
parent-child
coworkers,
dynamic,
actually, but
okay.
yeah.
So, right. But I would say like the kids and like your immediate household relationships, whoever those may be. Then I would say, at least for us, would be our extended family. Like, we spend a good percentage of our social time with your family. And so, like, we can take that into consideration too. And then I think like coworkers would rank very highly up there as well.
And then, like, on that same train of thought, it's, the same thing with, if we're talking about show me your friends, sometimes those people in the circle of influence, and it does, obviously it's different for everybody, because maybe their family is not who they spend the most time with. Maybe it is their friends. Maybe it is their coworkers. Maybe it is, someone else. Those same people may not be the same if you're changing and growing. And for some people, those people are the same, have been the same, and will always be the same. But if you're the kind of person who is kind of looking for something different, something new, like you're looking to contribute in a different way, even some of your values have shifted, right? The people who then come into those 5 will change for you. And maybe not all of them will, but some of them will. Mm-hmm. And so it's like this notion of, like, again, there's a wide array of people in your life that are your friends, but sometimes some people slide in and others slide out. As you move, as you grow, as you change, you need other people in your life to help kind of like mentor you, to help inspire you, to help you be drawn towards achieving other things. And so, like, maybe sometimes, they lead the way for you in that way. So you still have maybe 3 of the same people in your life, but you have these 2 new people who come in at a different point and understand where you are and can play a bigger role in your life, where, you didn't know them 20 years ago. But that doesn't mean that they get to be kept out because they're not your Fab 5.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just maybe a model of me, like, thinking through my my specific environment, right? And I think all of us would be better off, like, thinking through, right, who are the people that we're spending a lot of time with. For many of us, it's our coworkers, and, like, so what types of influences are they having on us, for better or worse?
Yeah. Well, even some of the couples that we are friends with now are different than the couples we were with when we were first married 15 years ago.
Oh, for sure.
And, that has to do with, like, proximity, location, career choices, kids. We were the first of our friends to have kids. And so then none of our friends had kids, but then I was starting to befriend other people who had kids that were even older than us. Like, it was like, like a mentor, like, I need someone who's a mom, like someone I can ask questions
it's nice
for.
when our oldest is the same age as someone else's youngest. And
right.
Then, yeah.
So I'm just saying things change. And so if you're the kind of person who is looking to, create and follow routines, towards success and achieving goals and, living in the means of value, you kind of think of friendship as like, kind of like a muscle, like, how does a muscle grow? And it's by being placed under stress. So like, are you just surrounded by the same people talking about the same things? Or do you have people in your life that are maybe a little more savvy, a little more privy, a little more wise, and they're challenging you with things like, what you're doing in your parenting or what you're doing in your marriage, like that they're causing you to kind of think and to move instead of just to stay stagnant.
Yeah. I want to throw one other influence into this as well too. So I know you're talking a lot about friendships, and like I said, that may vary, like the amount of actual time we spend with friends and the influence they have. But one element that I think all of us are spending time with is, I would say, just like cultural entertainment. Like everyone is on social media. We all watch TV or movies. So I would also say, or the music that you listen to, like those episodes you're watching, the songs that you're listening to, the types of individuals that you're following or are exposed to on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, those are also influences as well. So going back to my premise about what's normal to us, I think that popular culture and mass entertainment has a way of normalizing certain things too.
Okay. I would agree. Okay. Well, when I think of, just like social media, TV shows and all of that, and you're considering the company you keep, what I think of is this. Most of us are like social and extroverted and have, spheres of influence and circles of people and different groups. Because I think we're fortunate in that. Some people do not. I think there are a lot of people out there who don't have a lot of friends, who don't have a lot of support, don't have families. They go to work, they're unnoticed, and so I think we also have to think about it when the stuff that we're consuming through a digital platform, sometimes those are some people's closest friends. Like some people's closest friends are people that they've never met in person. Sure. It's like the influencer that they follow or the blogger that they follow, or, it could even be an actress or an athlete or something. It's just
Well,
it's
you're
stuff
using
they're
the word friend very liberally. But, but it's someone that they're familiar with, and they're allowing to kind of
infiltrate,
shape for them what's normal, what's appropriate and acceptable.
Right. And so I think it's not even just considering the company you keep. Like maybe you don't spend a lot of time with people face to face for one reason or another, right? Whether it has to do with anxiety or COVID or where you live or what you do for a living or working third shift. But like, what company are you keeping? What are the voices that you're hearing in your ears, in your headphones? That has a lot of influence over you as well.
Yeah. Oh, in your headphones. So maybe someone is allowing us to be a positive influence in their life.
Well, hopefully it's not a negative influence.
Positive, yeah. What else? I have a bunch of different questions listed here. Okay.
Fire away.
So this isn't really a question for you, but more for us, more for our listeners. I think one thing to think about is just establishing for yourself, first of all, this question, or the answer to this question, which is, what characteristics do you most want to have? Just deciding for yourself first. Like what kinds of care? I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. I want to be productive, right? Fill in the blank with whatever adjective or whatever activities you feel are most appropriate. Establishing that for yourself first. And then doing like a compare and contrast. Like, okay, this is who I want to be. Am I actually that person? But also let me take a look at the other people in my life, and are they helping? I wouldn't even say hindering, because sometimes if those elements are just absent, I don't see that as a hindrance necessarily, but are they helping or not towards this kind of person that I imagine myself being?
Yeah, you literally have to ask yourself, like, who do I spend the most time with? Who are the people we most admire? And are those two groups of people the same? If we're looking to be more generous or to be healthy or, whatever it is, to be more savvy in my business, right? Like, and that's something that I've been talking about a little bit. I did a coaching session with someone. It's like I need someone who knows more than me, someone that I can lean on, something that, we can have good conversation. They can kind of spur me on and support me. And it's like, like I need to find that voice in my life. I need to put that person into my circle. So I don't think it's about like limiting how many people are in your circle, but it's adding the kinds of people that are going to help you get to where you want to be. Mm-hmm. You have more questions or thoughts?
I had this experience when I was a freshman in high school in marching band. The drumline teacher, what do we call him?
I don't know.
The guy, the coach,
The coach?
the instructor.
The instructor?
He pointed to all the seniors, and he said, like, you freshmen, like, you should be spending all your time with these seniors so you could, like, learn how to, I don't know, like, be more mature like them, become a better percussionist, but also,
Yes,
like,
something like a 17-year-old boy.
develop your leadership skills and so on. So I took that literally, and I would go and, like, all right, it's lunchtime, and I would go and find them, and I go and sit next to them. They didn't want anything to do with me. And even though they understood, like, okay, like we understand, he's our fellow.
He's very literal, apparently.
He's our fellow drummer. Like we'd rather sit next to our friends and to these girls or whoever right now. And sometimes I feel that way in life as well, where you identify someone, you're like, you have a lot of the characteristics that I would like to incorporate into my own life. Please be my friend.
Well, that doesn't sound like a friendship. That sounds like you need a mentor. And so I think that's an as conversation, like, have you ever mentored anyone? I'm looking to gain these skills. I see that you have them. Would you consider mentoring me?
Yeah. But that's such a different dynamic than just being with someone. Right. Like
what?
With a friend, you can just be with. With a coworker, you're almost like forced with, right? As the spouse, you've chosen.
This is your
to live
family.
life
You're
alone.
stuck. Yeah.
Exactly. But to say like, okay, mentor me, then hopefully that has multiple dynamics in that mentor relationship that can. But I think the idea is like almost not like a mentorship. You're sitting across a table from someone in many instances, and like being so super like specific and intentional with certain aspects that you want to be mentored on. And I think that's great. But I think what we're talking about too is like where are we getting, like, first of all, where are we spending most of our time, and how do we sort of just the idea of how do we learn what's normal? How are we exposed to kind of this day in, day out sense of how I ought to be living?
Yeah. Well, and even just now you bringing that up is like this weird notion of like, how do we make more friends or different friends or like, right? Like, yeah, I mean, like for a lot of us, we've had friends because of, and it's usually because of like proximity, right? Like attending the same school, working at the same place. Maybe you're a regular somewhere and so are they. And then so you start talking. But when I think of like some of the friends I've made in the last few years, sometimes I can attribute it to having kids that are the same age. So again, it's proximity. Like you live in the same town, your kids go to the same school. So it's like this, you're constantly seeing this same face. And there's something about the way that they're interacting with their kids or at the school. And it's like, wow, I think I like that person. Like there's something that you see in them that like kind of draws you to them.
Right. But hopefully it's mutual.
Correct. Correct. And, we've had friends say that like, oh yeah, I saw you at the school, you roll in with 4 kids, your hair's brushed, everybody looks put together. I'm like, oh, that's what you're, basing like how you want to be my friend on, like, how we roll out of the minivan.
Well,
so,
yeah.
But, sometimes I think it's, just putting yourself out there and being a little bit more extroverted. So if you're looking to add different people to your life, like where are you hanging out? Like where are you going? Like what are you looking for? And I think that's part of it is like that intentionality of like, I need some different people in my life. I need to shake it up. I need to like move forward. I need more people like this. And you kind of have to be in search of them and kind of be open to that. Or you can just stay in your close, comfortable circle and never leave it. But I think there comes a point where you're ready to move forward and you realize that there are more people out there that could maybe add to your story.
Yeah. So I have a few ideas for this. This is almost like takeaways. Are we ready for takeaways?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I know you have a few. I have a few, and maybe they'll overlap a little bit. All right. So the first thing is this. Like I said, like I don't want to look at anyone and just like wholesale decide that I should or shouldn't be spending time with them because of how much they have to offer to me. But I do want to, like I think about, we spend a lot of time with your parents, 2 folks who are in their 60s, retired. And like it might be easy to be like, okay, like we don't necessarily have tons in common with what like where we're at in life, what we're trying to do. And this is just an example, but it raises the question that I think is a much better question, which is what virtues are already existent in these individuals' lives, whoever they may be, that we can learn from, that we can like try to focus on and leverage and pursue. And so I think about your parents, and I think about a lot of admirable things that they have done or continue to do. And that has created like just a really open, loving space that we can almost explore or do anything with them.
But if my parents weren't like that, do you think we would spend as much time with them as we do? I think the answer would be no. Right? Like that's when you look at the people around you, the reason that they're there is because you've chosen for them to be there. And if you haven't chosen them for them to be there and you're just hanging out because like that's what you've always done, then that's a different conversation, for you, your partner, your family.
Yeah. I think about, so I've been going to the jujitsu gym and I'm starting to make gym friends. I've never had gym friends before.
He came home last night. He's like, I got my first gym number.
Right.
I was like, it's from a guy, right?
Yeah. But right. But it's like, all right, I'm making friends. And like, as I look at this, the group of guys who are there, I don't connect with them in a lot of ways. Most of them are younger. Most of them are just beginning a career or are not interested in developing a career or pursuing higher education or some of the things that I would say are typical of people that I hang around. Most of them don't have kids or spouses but there's still a lot of virtue in the group of people. And so, I mean, one thing that the primary thing is that they're all pretty tough. I've never been tough before, so I want to rank.
Never been tough, no.
So I want to hang around people who are tough, and literally get beaten up by them, so that I can grow to become tougher as well. But I also think about, and you've heard me talk about this before too, but just being social, right? I have no problem just going somewhere by myself and interacting with people, except I'm not very good at it, right? It's like I can do that comfortably, but being just like spontaneously interactive with others, how would you say, my conversational savviness is not
very book smart, not very street smart.
Exactly. So, but just being in a space where it's like a safe space. We see each other all the time. We're interested in like this one mutual thing. And that is just a catalyst for like other casual conversation and getting to know one another and just enjoying the interaction that they have to offer. Like I think helps make me more of the kind of person that I'd like to become too. So anyway, so that goes back to my first bullet point, which is what virtues already exist with the people that we're spending time with. But it goes with my second bullet point too, which is join organizations. It's kind of like high school.
It's kind of like dating. You got to figure out who you want to spend some time with.
Yeah. I was going to say, what do you and I know about dating?
Last date we went on was like 23 years ago.
Yeah. But kind of like high school where you tell students, or we tell our children, get involved in the extracurriculars, join a sport or join a club or activity, because that's where you meet people who have common interests and you develop friendships from there. And I think
it's also where you figure out like who you want to be, what you're good at, what you're not.
Yeah. But that I don't think that changes in adulthood, except we don't call them extracurriculars. We call them like, clubs or organizations.
Hobbies, interests.
Yeah. But if you join those, then that's going to expose you to like a new set of people. You're brought together by this common interest, and that serves as an opportunity to like just meet others and develop more of those characteristics that you want.
Yeah, I think that's great. Anything else on your list there?
This is a weird one, but it's worth mentioning. In season 5, maybe it was episode 11 or 12, we mentioned Napoleon Hill, who's an author who wrote Think and Grow Rich. And he has a lot of like mental exercises in that book. One mental exercise that he has is what he called his group of like invisible counselors. And so he would kind of close his eyes and imagine himself in dialogue with some of the best thinkers of history. So he would like imagine himself sitting down with Aristotle and Socrates and Darwin and Newton, and he would bring his problems to this group. So even though it's all like mental, he would kind of invent his own friends in a sense, right? And if you can invent friends, like it'd be pretty cool to sit down and have a cup of tea with Einstein as you talk.
I like how you're like, this would be pretty cool, and I'm thinking this guy is weird,
right? But let's say these geniuses of history, they're inaccessible to us, literally. But in a sense, as a form of mental exercise, it's kind of like an imaginary friend in a sense. You can't find these real influences. What would these imagined influences have on us too? So I told you that's a little weird, but that's an exercise that we can do.
So, but to me, it wouldn't be like an imagined influence. Like I would think of like, and I'm like, I could just name some people that are like in my circle. Okay. Like, what would Jackie say about this? What would Rosanna? It's funny. I have a friend named Rosanna. Sure. Who would have thought? But what would she tell me to do? Or what would Amanda do in this like scenario? Like,
so without actually talking to them,
right?
about,
Like
you
in
can
my
imagine
mind,
what they would.
when we start to talk ourselves out of something, or when we second guess, like, what would they say about me to me? Like, yeah, you can do this. You want to know why you can do? Like, I try and remember how other people see me when I can't see it in myself. So, I think that's why, like, if you're surrounded by the right people, you know what they would tell you because they know you and they trust you and they value you. So, I think that's important.
Yeah. So that's a great exercise. I would do that with, that makes me think of piano lessons. But when I was a kid taking piano, I would practice and then imagine to myself what my teacher would tell me to improve before she actually told me.
I think that's good.
There you go. All right. So my last point of application is just to change the conversation. Maybe like the way you interact with people kind of has a grounding already, but can you change it up a little bit? Can you interact with them just by like bringing up a new topic or a new question or a new activity to spur the kind of relationship that you have in more of the direction that you would like to see it grow into?
And I think that's true for any relationship. Like, has it gone stale? Are you just in a place of comfort where you do the same old thing? And maybe the habits that you have together are unhealthy. So like, how do you change the conversation? How do you change the relationship? How do you push both you and them further?
Yeah. What's on your list?
Again, just going back to considering the company you keep. Like, who are the people in your life? Are they people you want to be more like? Like,
So take an audit of the relationships you have.
Right. So you have to take control. Some people will hold us back. Other people will propel us forward. So we have to actively construct our social environment. It doesn't mean we have to exclude anybody, but that doesn't mean you can't shake things up, start a new conversation, add different people to the fold, spend less time with people who, maybe are negative or a detriment to what you're doing. So there's that. You can level up by spending time with people who are already like what you want to become like. And then I think really the last one is this. Not every relationship we have has to be a relationship that we're going to get something out of. So it's not about even just the company you keep, but why don't you try and be one of those people to somebody else? If people are saying like, you're the sum of you're the average of the sum of the 5 people you spend your time with. Be one of those 5 people to someone else. It's important we learn and grow and to be the kind of person who can help someone else level up. We don't always have to be the person getting something out of the relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. It's not, we are always about taking, but like, what are we giving?
Right. So most of the question of the conversation has been, what does this person give to me? But we're also influenced all the people around us.
Right. So you have to kind of think of, if you're in somebody else's circle, what role are you playing to them? Are you spurring someone forward, or are you a detriment holding them back?
I like your use of the word circle. It makes me think of Meet the Fockers.
It's a circle.
You're in the circle of trust.
Oh, I was thinking like, it's a ring. It has no beginning. It has no end.
What movie is that?
I don't know. It's about marriage. And, again, every Saturday I hear that same, it's a ring. It has a circle. It has no beginning. It has no end. The priest says it every week. So what are your thoughts? Show me your friends, right?
Show me your friends. But again, it's not just about friends. It's about like the family that you build for yourself, the extended family, coworkers, people that you're meeting in just different community organizations or activities that you're involved in. So everybody.
Right. Everybody has an influence on who you are and who you're going to become.
Yeah. So take that audit, make those choices. 2022.
Wow, that was an awkward ending to the first episode of season 6.
Yeah, we're not good. I think we're good at starting the episode and running with the episode. But then when it comes time to wrap it up, it's just like, oh, yeah.
Maybe we should find a friend who can teach us how to do that.
Sure. I think that'd be great. Speaking of wrapping things up, this is the time in the episode where we remind you once again, get to iTunes, leave a 5-star review and a wonderful rating for us. We would appreciate that. Anything else, Rosanna?
I think you said that backwards. A 5-star review and a wonderful rating.
You know what I meant. All right, everybody. Well, we appreciate hearing from you. And in all honesty, Rosanna and I are very interested in interacting with, I guess, the kinds of people who listen to a show like this. So we would love to, if you would like for us to have any degree of a positive influence in your life, or we'd certainly crave that from you. So let's interact. Let's find a space where we can hang out or connect online, and we'll look forward to carrying these conversations further together.
Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to today's show. We hope you will use this conversation as a starting point for your own. We hope you're encouraged to think and act more intentionally.
If you want to learn more, you can visit our website, therelentlesspursuitpodcast.com, where you can find notes on today's show, plus additional blog posts, and you can subscribe to our free members list.
Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends.
Facebook and Instagram are 2 great places to connect with us for daily doses of our quotable quotes, behind the scenes, and real-time photos, videos, and challenges.
Until next time, let us know how you are taking life off autopilot
And relentlessly pursuing what matters.